Welcome, everyone, to the Ghost Helpers podcast. I'm your host, Tina Erwin, and our goal is to explain the physics of metaphysics and to teach the living how to help the dead. Today, I'm here with a special guest, Charity Dawson. And the reason Charity is so special is because she wrote the foreword to part two of Psychic People, Psychic Children, Psychic People. And I invited her to write that forward because she had a variety of unique experiences, which led her to connect with me. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you. This is Charity Dawson. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I feel honored, and I'll never forget when I first called you because I'd listened to many of your podcasts, probably all of them. And when we finally talked, I said, I feel like I'm talking to a celebrity because I was just so shocked that you responded to my email, and then we had this conversation shortly thereafter. And it's an honor to be a part of this podcast today. And I'm really excited to share and help anybody out there because when you realize you have a child that's psychic with these abilities, I just felt lost. And it was hard to talk to anybody about it because nobody would understand. And I just felt like people think I'm crazy. And it's a lonely feeling. So to have a community and somebody to talk to and help guide me through this was huge.
Well, I'm glad I was able to help. And, all good deeds are rewarded, whether people realize it or not. So you're asking me to help you. Actually, I got very much rewarded by the wonderful things you wrote in that foreword, because I didn't want the foreword to be some super out there metaphysical thing. I wanted it to be real people who have had really challenging experiences and could actually use the tools in the book to make their lives come back into balance, because that's what this is really about: bringing your life back into balance in a really important way.
And
So,
removing the fear of it because the fear was it was intense.
can you give everyone an overview of what you were experiencing, and then we'll go into the focus of our topic today, which is, by the way, salt.
My experience, well, I have never seen a ghost before. The house that I currently live in was a home. It was a family home, and a few people had passed away in here. And one of my biggest fears in life was like, I don't want to see anything. I never want to see anything. And shortly after moving in, I woke up in the middle of the night. I heard my child crying in his crib. I had the monitor in my room. And so now I'm awake and wondering, okay, should I go get him? Like, is he going to fall back asleep? He was probably 2 at that time. And so he went back to sleep, and I'm just sitting there, and now I'm awake. And I heard this faint woman's voice outside my bedroom door, and she made a noise. She didn't say anything, but I'd heard that before from watching many like ghost hunter shows and whatnot. And I knew exactly it was muffled, but it was female, and I was frightened. And I put the pillow over my head and I fell back asleep. And after that, I was like, I don't want to live here. This is what just happened. Anyway, so after that, nothing really happened. Never experienced anything. A couple of years after that, I had said goodnight to my son. He was probably 7, 8 at the time. And I'm sitting in my daughter's room saying goodnight to her, and I'm looking directly at his bedroom door. And I saw this little ghost boy, and it was very clear. And I remember what he wore. He had this white peasant top on. He was little, probably 6, 7, and he had dark hair. And I remember him running like this into his room. And I just like jumped out of my daughter's room, and I was like, oh my God, what did I just see? I just saw a ghost. Oh my God. And I was freaked out. I was freaked out. Then after that, all this stuff started happening. Now I'm paying attention. Now whoever's in my home is kind of having fun with it. I've heard footsteps, door slamming. In my kids' rooms, things would fall off the wall. And of course, I go on the internet like, how to rid your house of ghosts, right? I was saging, I was banging pots and pans, ringing bells, and it just got more intense. And I finally just went down to this metaphysics store here where I live. Never been to a store like this. The way I was raised, like, this is like devil's work, right? You don't go to those stores, you don't talk to mediums, that's devil's work. And I was at a loss because at that time, right before I had gone in there, I had put my son to bed, and he woke up and came into my room and he said, Mom, I'm scared. I'm like, why are you scared, buddy? He goes, well, something was touching me. I said, oh, what did it feel like? Right? And he's like, it was like poking my arm. I said, all right, well, okay, sure, it's nothing. Let's go back to bed. That's when I freaked out and ran to the store. And I just walked in there going, I need help. I have a ghost in my house. And then that's when he explained, the gentleman was like, let's get you sage and this and that. But you should talk to our medium here. And then that's when I went in and met with her and talked to her about my son's experiences. And she explained, well, he could very well be a medium. This is going to be part of your life forever. And I just thought, no, I didn't sign up for this. No. What are you talking about? She's like, well, they're just probably attracted to him. So anyway, it was a long journey. She came out to my house, and sure enough, I had the grandma that had passed away. The grandpa was in the house. Well, I didn't know that at that time, but my dad was in the house and this little boy, and she helped cross them over. Probably like one of the experiences I'll never forget, and it was traumatic for me. And after that, it was quiet for a while, and that's when I dove deep into like, what is this world? Ghosts? What? Right? And somehow I came across your podcast and listened and gained all this knowledge. And then at one point, the house was good for like, I don't know, a year. And then stuff started happening again. And it was like dark stuff. My son would say, Mom, I feel like somebody's watching me. And he would go into a room and say, Mom, it's really scary in there. And my medium friend at the time, she's now passed, she said to me, you've got some dark stuff in your house. I can't help you with that. I had heard knocking. I had heard voices through the speakers of my home, and I was beside myself, frightened. And I was like, you can't help me? She's like, I can't help you with this. And that's when I reached out to you, because on one of your podcasts, you talked about remote viewing and removing stuff. And then that's when I reached out. You responded. You did remote view my house, and then indeed you did tell me that there was some not so good things happening, and it affected the whole house. It was just kind of this dark, kind of sad time. Affected some of the kids more so than the others. And you helped me, and you taught me, and you gave me the tools in the beginning. Like, let's start with this. Let's do, cut up the oranges and the onions, put them in the rooms, and the green light bulbs, and the salt under the bed, and the salt by the salt water next to the bed. Everybody thought here I was nuts. Everybody was like, why are you putting oranges and onions in our room? I'm like, let's just try this and see. And it did. It really did. It shifted. After you helped me, the mood, the kids, everything was so much peaceful. There was happiness, there was joy, and the tools help. That's all I can say. The tools help. They still help. I still have stuff everywhere that people probably walk in my house. My house cleaners probably go through and like, oh, geez, more crystals up here. And what are these prayers under the bed? I'm sure people think I'm nutty, but I don't care. I don't care. When you live like this and you have kids with abilities, it's forever changed my life, and this is part of me. And now I get to help the people that need help, and that's huge for me because I
It
know
is,
the feeling.
because this happened to me in Charleston when we lived there in South Carolina, because the whole state is haunted.
Uh-huh.
So many different wars and events that take place there. And I actually had a ghost get in bed with me and hold my hand. And when someone says I was so terrified, it's like, been there, done that. And I so well remember what that terror feels like. And I was a naval officer at the time. I guess you're always a naval officer. I was a lieutenant at the time, and I couldn't tell anybody because you don't want to be considered crazy because you have these huge responsibilities, but you have a ghost in your house. And then we discovered our neighborhood was haunted, and all of that is detailed in Ghost Stories from the Ghost Point of View, Volume 1, because that's a very long story. The bottom line to all of this is, one, you have to be able to harden your house as a ghost target. But number two, if you have the additional issue of psychic children or a psychic child, it becomes incredibly important to know what to do to cross them over instead of banishing them or telling them to leave or inviting them to leave or thinking if you're polite. None of that works.
Right.
And the old adage of using sage doesn't work either because it's not powerful enough. And our focus today, because in the Psychic Children, Psychic People book, chapters 39 through 41, go into extensive detail on the tools to not only harden your location, your home, even your person as a target for ghosts, it also raises the frequency of your location, and it gives you the tools to help a ghost cross over without having to pay a medium. People have been ripped off for years. There's some wonderful psychics out there. I have met many of them are my friends. They're very honest, but they're not in the majority, unfortunately. So understanding the pitfalls along the way when you are not just trying to remove a ghost, but you're on a spiritual path, those things are all really important.
Mm-hmm.
What I wanted to do is have our focus today be on one of the tools that, because we had a conversation about this before we started the show, and you made the suggestion, let's talk about salt and how it works. So is that still a good focus for you?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so tell everyone why you wanted to discuss that.
Oh gosh, salt, because with my career, I do hair, so I get to talk to a lot of people, and there's a lot of children coming in that have these abilities. And I'll be talking to clients and they'll tell me, "Oh my gosh, my kid's not sleeping." And then that's when I ask them, "Well, what are they saying?" "Oh, they say they're scared. They say they see scary things in their closet." And um sorry, my dog's barking. And that's when I suggest some stuff like, "Well, you probably have something there. Your kids, are your kids, do they fib a lot?" "No, not really." "Okay, well, they're telling you that because they're seeing stuff and they're scared. And why would you not want to help them?" Right? And a lot of them like, "Nah, I don't believe in that world, yada yada yada," or they do. And they're like, "Oh, well, I live," like one client's like, "Well, I've lived in a haunted house. I've experienced this my whole life. I don't really mind if they're not hurting us or anything." I'm like, "But your kid is scared. If you could see it, would you be okay with a stranger in your house watching you and scaring your kid?" No. So helping them to protect their kids, start with some salt under the bed, right? Um, and I had one tell me, "Wow, I did. I put the salt under the bed. My kids sleep great. I don't hear anything anymore at night." I'm like, it's simple and it works, right? Um, so yeah, salt is just, it's such an easy thing to do and so powerful. I recently myself was not sleeping well, and I don't sleep well in general, and kind of feeling stuff at night coming in my room, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to put some salt under my bed. Why not? Let me tell you, I've not slept so good in so long. I sleep peacefully. I sleep all night. I'm like, just from putting salt under my bed, it's mind blowing how simple and easy it is, and what a great tool it is.
Okay, that those are awesome stories.
I got stories all day long for you.
Well, I think those are extremely important. So let's stop and talk about the salt under the bed and why that works. First of all, salt is inert, so you never have to change it. I have a bowl, a little bowl about 2 inches deep of just can be any kind of salt, not necessarily Epsom salt because that's not sodium chloride, that's magnesium. Magnesium's wonderful for you, but we're talking about working in other realms, and salt under the bed shifts the energy of stagnation and cleans it just by the very presence of the salt. It's just amazing. And you never have to change that salt. Some people say, well, should I change it every night? And thinking that is a lot of salt. You're going to go,
Right.
you don't need to do that. Put it under there and forget it. I also have had people, I've done this too, where you take a salt brick that you can, let me grab one. I actually happen to have one.
Okay.
Not right with me. Actually, I didn't have it in this corner, but I can get it eventually. A salt brick that will actually, they are 4-pound salt bricks, and you can buy them at the feed store.
Mm-hmm.
And they weigh 4 pounds. They're these 2-inch, rectangles. And I put them in the corners of all the rooms, and you can put them under your bed. You could put them in your car if you think your car is a ghost magnet. And nobody really has to see them. And that's what's really nice about salt under the bed. When I first started, I was doing, in addition to anything I could get my hands on to try to figure this out, I was doing a lot of feng shui. And after a while, it looks like a Chinese brothel. So I cannot continue to do that. Or people think, oh my gosh, this woman is so weird. And that upset my teenagers. So I had to come up with some other less obvious ways to harden myself as a ghost magnet, because obviously that's what I was. And then I realized, well, what if it's not a bad thing? What if I have an ability that could help the dead? What if? And if that was the case, gosh, that would be really compassionate. Isn't that the compassion I would want for myself? Or my child who died, or someone else's child who doesn't know what to do. And so this, going back to salt, when you use salt, one of the key points is that salt works in every dimension. And people go, well, why does it work? It's just salt. But sodium chloride actually will burn darkness away simply by its presence, just sitting there. So if you have salt under your bed and you've had trouble sleeping, maybe there was something in a different dimension under your bed. Okay, I know that's a really scary thought when you think about it, but having had clients where I looked under their beds and there were some really awful things there, cleared it all out, and then suggested that the client, they put maybe a couple bowls of salt, one bowl of salt for each person in the bed, 2 people. And they said it was miraculous what happened to them after that. It made a huge, huge difference. Okay, well, now you raised your frequency to here. Well, if you got the salt blocks from any feed store, that sells, salt to livestock, and I'm not talking about these massive blocks, they're just little blocks.
Mm-hmm.
Then you create 45-degree angles in the corners of, just say, your bedroom. Well, now we're using the energy of architecture to create rotation. Corners that have, an exact, like a piece of paper, an exact 90-degree angle. You can have a lot of stagnant energy there. But once you create a 45-degree angle, or you take that square and make it an octagon, now you've created an architectural concept called rotation. So you've now raised the frequency from here to here. Just by doing that, those 2 things, salt under the bed and the salt in the corners. A lot of people tell you to salt your front entrance. You can do that. The problem is it blows away, it goes away. You can't remember to do it every day. One of the big issues when you're dealing with psychic ability is it has to be reasonable. If you're going to protect someone, it has to be achievable so that anyone can do it. You shouldn't have to be this high and mighty person. I have all the magic tools. That's nonsense. Everyone should have the ability to protect themselves in a karmically correct manner. When you're using salt, salt is a cleaner. It also is a preservative. When you're using salt, it works in every dimension. So, have you ever used salt visualizing it falling on your house?
All this every day. Every day.
All right.
Every day.
And what effects have you seen? Because we're going to explain that one too.
For myself, I don't necessarily know, but I have talked to any intuitive friend that may come over. They just talk about how good it feels and how my house is very protected. They can like feel it and see the protection. And then I explain like the visualization that I do every day for my home. And salt is one of those things.
All right. Well, let's talk about what that is. And in the Psychic Children, Psychic People book, it's called A Salty Rain. And it's visualization. And people go, well, gee, does that work? Yes, it does work. When you're visualizing, I did this morning myself. When you're visualizing that the entire perimeter of your property, because you're visualizing this, you're enhancing your own spiritual ability through what's called daily spiritual practice. When you visualize that this block of square rain is coming down on your property and it's a powerful salt solution, sodium chloride, it is coming down. And what it's doing is it's cleaning. When I say salt works in every dimension, I just stumbled on that. I would like to say I had some great moment of inspiration, but I kind of stumbled on it, which is how, most things take place. You didn't realize that was going to happen, and now it does. So I realized that if you visualize salt coming down, if something is negative, it's like you're burning it. It's like you lit it with a blowtorch. Not because you mean to create harm, but let's face it, you have a right to protect your home. Basically, you're putting a salt barrier around the entire perimeter on all the sides of the property, above the property, and below the property. The reason this is really, really helpful on multiple levels, it's not just for ghosts, it's not just for some dark intelligence, it's also for predecessor energy. We don't know what's happened there before. I mean, it's not like everybody's got a psychic who's going to remote view your property in your back pocket. Most people don't. And so interesting thing about remote viewing, even if you're remote viewing it, you're not necessarily going to be allowed to see everything.
Mm-hmm.
When you're salting your property, what you're doing is you are starting to clear over time the negative predecessor energy that was there. If it's positive energy, it'll only be enhanced. If it's negative energy, you're going to be erasing it.
And let's not forget that I live about a mile from Folsom Prison. So there's a lot of negative not too far from me. So it definitely is something that I do every day.
This is huge. Okay, you live a mile from a prison. What about the person who lives
a really bad one?
really bad one with a lot of history to it? What about the person who lives across the street from a cemetery? You may have crossed all those ghosts over, but the energy of death lingers there. So if you're salting your home every day, you are you're cleansing it. For instance, if you bathe every day, you wash off. I mean, we live in the country now up here in Washington State, and we have a septic tank. So I can't use salt day after day after day and put that in a septic tank. That's not considered a good thing. But when we lived in San Diego, I did do that. And I would bathe with salt, my body, my feet, and literally you could use it to polish your face. It does amazing things for your skin. Um, Not necessarily, maybe not for everybody, but what it does is it's really washing negative energy off of the body, especially when you bathe at night. You enter the sleep state very clean with a higher frequency. You've washed off the negativity of the day, especially if you work with people, you're in the public, you're out in public, you're walking in crowds or shopping malls, or you're on trains, planes, buses, and LA freeway traffic. Your auric field is bombarded. What salt does in the gentlest way is it cleans the body. So if you're using a salt scrub, which you can make yourself, they're not expensive. Or let's say I can't use a salt scrub, but I can visualize a salty rain on my property and on my person and on my car. Want your car to work better over time? Visualize you are covering your car in salt to remove all the negativity that the car is encountering as it moves through the air, it moves through traffic. We may or may not bathe our cars all the time. Everybody's kind of berserk about water right now. But salty rain will do a lot of cleansing. For
And when
instance,
I visualize it with the home, not the outside, but I visualize in the home, I visualize the kids in their rooms, and I visualize the salt coming down on them.
yes.
And I also, if like the kids are overwhelmed or anxious and it's, nighttime, like, hey, let's take a bath. I'll put some salt in there. And it's such like a cleansing euphoric feeling. And it just kind of it brings you down. It grounds them. So I'm really big on that too.
That's an awesome idea. I love that idea. So putting salt in your bath, in addition to Epsom salts, because magnesium automatically helps the body to relax. Magnesium is incredibly important. So both of those, whether it's sea salt or Epsom salts, those in a bath are going to be incredibly powerful for the body in the auric field. You can also,
I suggest it a lot to clients that have littles that are very empathic and they go to school and they come home and they've got all this energy, right? And they're spinning. And I always suggest, like, try giving a bath at night and put some salt in there, because we need to bring them down. We need to ground them. They're taking in all this stuff from school and the kids and just the energy of the school. And it's a lot for them. It's a lot. So that's a good one. I always like to suggest too, if they start talking about their kids and their anxiousness and being overwhelmed.
that's a great idea. When my daughter was in high school, she would come home angry. High school has a lot of angry kids. And she said, you get to be here in this high vibration house all day long, and I have to go into this dark pit that's high school. I said, okay, blow
Yep.
off, and then let's just, use some salt. So you're absolutely right. The body physically can't function without salt. I know there's been this push over time to say, you need less and less salt. The problem is, as soon as you become dehydrated because you don't, or your electrolytes are out of balance, you go to the hospital and they give you
Salt.
salt. They give you salt.
Yeah.
Baking soda is another one. Even plants have to have salts. They're called, someone says they're the salt of the earth. Well, when you talked about salt grounding someone, think about that. We say someone is the salt of the earth. They're grounded, they're balanced. So that's a really, really excellent point to bring up. Really, really excellent. And I think that when you're visualizing that your property or your children or your car are being cleansed with this salt, and it's washing away the darkness, you can ask that an angel take the darkness to the higher realms and process it. That's a really good thing to do because we don't want to litter the ether. So we just ask that this salt wash away any darkness and really keep it as clean as humanly possible. When people
And the visualization, it is a practice, and it's hard to do at first, to quiet your mind to do it and visualize it. So it may sound easy, but at first it was really hard. And there's still things that I do that it's hard to visualize, but the more I do it, the easier it gets.
That's a very good point. When I started having to visualize a variety of extremely unusual things, I wasn't sure I knew how to do that. Everybody has a first day. And I think you bring up another extremely important point. Everybody has a first day when they're trying something and they go, "Whoa, this is hard." Well, nothing worthwhile that we ever do starts out super easy. It's a learning process, it's a learning curve. When you're visualizing, think about it, you're working in the fourth dimension. You're not working in the third. You're physically in the third, but you're using your mind to work in the fourth, bringing down something from the higher realms that's very positive. A lot of psychics tell people, "Oh, just bring down a little white light, you'll be okay." Not really, because you can't do it 24 hours a day and you don't know how much volume to use. But when you're using salt, you've now cleaned a location. And then if you're wanting to bring down white light, it's like putting on absolutely pristine white clothes over a filthy body.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't work as well as when you put those wonderful clean clothes on a clean body. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, it is hard to learn to do it at first, but you can do it. It's not overwhelmingly hard. And when you start training your mind to focus, something happens inside of you that just takes you to a better and more clean place because you're connecting with the divine to do this. When you're connecting to the divine, you have nothing between you and the higher realms, nothing between you and God. And you're asking God, you're asking an angel to assist you in bringing this incredible cleansing, healing salt down. When somebody says, "Oh, they pour salt on the wounds," what does salt do? It cleans up the wound,
Right.
starts to dry up the darkness or the bacteria or the infection. All those things are incredibly important.
Mm-hmm.
So, what other ways have you used salt, or are those the primary ones?
I would say those are the primary ones.
Well, there is another one that I have had some clients do who were inordinately plagued, and I found this particular tool in a book by Dajra Mekaharik, and his is spiritual cleansing,
Mm-hmm.
and he has a very interesting book too. Again, some wonderful authors out there. And you take a simple glass of water and you just sprinkle some salt in it and put it next to your bed. And so if you have the salt in the corners of the room, salt under the bed, and a glass of salt next to your bed, then what's happening is you have truly have multiple layers of protection, because what happens is the salt becomes magnetic to something trying to come at a person. In the morning, just flush it down the toilet. This is a case where you do replace it every day, but you're not using, 5 pounds of salt. You're using, I don't know, half a teaspoon in an 8-ounce glass of water. And your cat will only drink that once or twice, and then they won't touch that water anymore.
Yeah.
We've all had cats who drank water or whatever it was we were drinking. It had to be good. And it's another really simple little thing that you can do that will it'll just make a really big difference in how you sleep and, what you do from that point on.
And I just love when you were telling me about this book, I was so excited to have the tools right here to read is amazing. This is like my guidebook, seriously. And I could go in there and read like, okay, what did we talk about? Like what essential oils for what? It's been so amazing, and I'm so glad you wrote it. I'm so glad, and that I could share it with others. Like, you need this. You have a psychic child with a lot of abilities. You need this book. So
Well,
thank you so much. Literally, there's no information out there like your information.
that's why I wrote it, because I mean, if I were abducted by aliens tomorrow,
I would be so sad too. That book. What about that book?
that I have the books out there. I mean, all 9 of them have.
They're amazing. They're all amazing. I give them to I literally Amazon the prayer book. This book I've used more. I use this all the time. I print them out. I send them to people. I screenshot. I'm like, read this book. You have somebody dying in the hospital right now. Say this prayer. You have this going on. You lost somebody. Go to this. Your dog just died. Like there's a prayer for you. And I literally use this all the time as well. There's you have so much great information to help people. And my friends, my clients are so grateful for
Well, that's
these
a great thing to know.
tools.
Well, what I'm hoping is that we can continue to do these shows, and any questions, you may want to let your clients, know that if they have questions, that you and I can just bring them up and discuss them. Because if they have questions, they aren't the only ones.
No, and everybody knows. Like, oh, you should go talk to Charity. She'll help you. She knows. She'll help you, and I will. And that's my passion, is to help and inform, because of the feelings that I had and the loss and the scared. And you're not crazy, and you're not alone. You're not alone. And there's so many of these kids right now with these abilities, and parents don't know what to do. Some are scared and don't want to know what to do. But it's one of those things like, well, why would you turn away, and why would you not help your kid? Why would you not help them and support them along their journey and not make them feel like they're crazy? My kids tell me everything. They know that I will be there to guide them, and I just want them to feel like they're not out there, right? You're not out there. There's plenty of other kids out there experiencing the same things that just aren't as open as we are about it, and hoping to open them up and know that it's okay. This is normal.
It's a new normal.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean it's bad. Let's say that you have a psychic child and they're working in 2 dimensions because they're seeing, feeling things in 2 dimensions. Well, you have tools that work in 2 dimensions. So now you are empowered. And that's really the hope, is to empower as many people as possible to take away fear. Fear engenders darkness. Knowledge empowers people and brings in light. And above all, I just consider that so super important. So what I would like to suggest is that as questions come to you or things you want to talk about, we're just going to do more and more of these podcasts. If you're up for it and your clients have questions they want us to address. And these podcasts are available on Ghost Helpers, which is a app, the Ghost Helpers app, which is on Amazon, and it is a free app. I pay for it myself as my service to anyone who wants to hear this information, and they don't have to buy an app to do that. So this is, again, another element of service on my part. And between Charity and I, and all the other wonderful people I do podcasts with all over the world, information is getting out there, and maybe people will have a better night's sleep. So if they have a better night's sleep and they believe their children, maybe their marriage will be better, and maybe they'll do better at work. and maybe they'll share it. And that's how you change the world.
Yep.
One good night's sleep at a time. So, anyway, well, what we're going to do is we're going to end this and remind everyone that they can find the Psychic Children, Psychic People book on Amazon and or ghosthelpers.com on the book section, and that will link you directly to Amazon. And all 9 books are now audiobooks. So that's a huge task. And by the way, I narrated all 9. They're not artificial intelligence voices. They are my voice. And I'm mentioning that because I was asked to be a beta tester for Amazon for audiobooks using AI. I did try it, and I felt that the energy and the passion can't be there if it's an artificial voice. So that's why I learned how to do an audiobook myself. Charity, I want to thank you for being with me today and doing this, and we're going to do it again. You have any parting comments?
I just want to thank you. Thank you for all your knowledge, all your podcasts, all your books, because like I said, I've listened to probably all of them. I've got all your books, and I share them with so many, and it's so helpful. I have people reaching out to me all the time, thanking me for one of the crossing over prayers, or the prayer for whatever, or the tools for their kids. I just feel so blessed to be on this podcast, talking to you and reaching out and trying to help others, because it's a world that not everybody understands, but it's normal for me, and I want to make it normal and not feel weird, right? We're not weird.
We're not weird. We just have a different sensibility, and we're bringing it into the realm of normalcy with down-to-earth tools, practical things you can do, and focusing on the service that one mortal person can do for someone who might need our help, both the living and the dead. And with that, we're going to sign off. Charity, thank you very much.
Thank you, Tina.
And we will tune in again as soon as we can put another one together.
Sounds good.
All righty.
Thank you.